Welcome to the Bird Joy Podcast. I'm Dexter Patterson.
And I'm Jason Hall. This podcast is for all the bird nerds and homies out there that want to find a little bird joy. So welcome.
Yes, a little bird joy. And you know, I always say birding isn't always just about the birds. It's about nature. So are you ready for some nature and some bird joy today? Let's go. Today, folks, we have the homie Alex Troutman with us today. What up, homie? What up, Alex? What's going on?
What's good, fam?
We are so happy to have you today. For those of you that don't know Alex is a wildlife biologist, a birder, a nature enthusiast, and science communicator from Austell, Georgia. He holds both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in biology from Georgia Southern University. The Georgia Southern University, right?
Yeah,
now,
the right
it's
one.
only the that's the one that, right? That's the one that
Right. The real GSU.
The real GSU with a focus in conservation. His research includes a wide range of things, and we're going to talk about that with Al today. Alex is also co-organizer of several Black and X Science Weeks, including Black Birders Week, say it for me, I'm going to mess it up.
Black Mammologist Week.
Black Mammologist Week and Black and Marine Science Week. I knew I was going to butcher it, so save a brother. All of these movements, man, encourage diversity in nature and overall just a celebration of Black individual scientists, making people aware of Black nature enthusiasts all over the place in diversity and STEAM fields. Alex has a passion for sharing the wonders of nature and introducing the younger generation to the outdoors. He's an author of a number of pocket guides to animals in various states, including my own Wisconsin. You know I got it. You know what I mean? You know I got it.
Hey.
He has been featured or appeared on CNN, The Odyssey Online. He understands what it's like to grow up without wildlife role models, which is something we were talking about before we started recording today. A common theme for all of us and a lot of people, a lot of Black men that I know, a lot of people that I know, a lot of people of color that are scientists didn't really see that when they were growing up. So we want to be able to talk about that. And Al, you are the perfect person to have on the show today to talk about this. So welcome, my brother.
Well, appreciate it. I just thank you guys for having me here. And let's talk about this wildlife and what it means to have a wildlife mirror. I'm excited to be here and I love you guys and let's get it.
That's
Awesome, man. Dude, it's so good to be back with you again, man. I remember we talk about this a lot in the podcast, but that long weekend at St. Simon's Island, Little St. Simon's Island with everybody. And one of my pivotal memories, just like looking across the back of that truck bed and like you were sitting there, Dex was sitting there, and we're just like rolling in the dark to the beach. And I'm like, what are we doing? This is amazing. Like, and I felt, honestly, I'm not in conservation work, right? I don't do work out in the field, right? I'm one of them lab people that Dexter makes fun of, right? But I felt more comfortable being in the back of the truck with you, homie. I was like, Al knows what's good. He knows these swamps down here. He knows what we're looking for. And that is one of my favorite memories, man, of being there with you, being able to listen to your stories and your voice. And it's been too long. I think that was 2022. So what have you been up to since then, man? What's going on in life? How you feeling?
Yeah. What's going on in life? The biggest thing is your boy is engaged.
Uh-oh.
So,
I want to make sure everybody knows he's off the market. All right. Off the shelf. I know. Yep. We all seen his smile. He's got the best smile in birding. I know there's some thirsty people out there, but take it off the shelf. He's gone. All right. He's out of here.
Yes. I am off the market. The DMs are closed.
See, folks, the joy comes on so many different levels on this podcast. Joy is joy, joy. Let's go.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
Since the last time we were all together, I have completed my master's. I've been working up in DC with freshwater policy with the Fish and Wildlife Service. I completed that internship. It was part of NOAA. It was the Canals Marine Policy Fellowship. So I finished that, and now I'm back in Georgia. I'm working with the National Park Service as an environmental protection specialist. I'm here at Chattahoochee River Recreation Area. It's a national park unit here in Atlanta. And so I'm doing that focusing on trying to eventually get married. Weddings are expensive. I'm learning that now that we have a date down and we're trying to narrow our venue. But yeah.
I love it. I love it. You know, Al, every time I see you, man, you're outside. You really kind of embody what you preach, whether it's holding a sea turtle or climbing around in a marsh wearing orange, going on a hunting trip, examining bats in the middle of the night, or showing somebody something cool, like showing a kid something cool in the stream. Like, you're really out there. How do you find replenishment when you are so busy and you got so much going on? How do you replenish yourself? How do you keep going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I spend a lot of time outside, and it's been great that I work outside, and it's also where I can also find joy and passion to be outside. So when I am outside of work, like, I'm able to take that uniform off and like, this doesn't work for National Park Service. This is my time. My joy in outside and outdoor comes from like my spark bird, which is the red-tailed hawk. Seeing that bird when I was little flying like over me fishing, just knew, honestly, low-key, I was jealous. Like, I can't fly, that they can fly. So I just get like empowerment and from being outside, just like from birds being able to just take off and go wherever they want and not really seemingly having any care in the world. And there's nothing truly like really holding them down. So I kind of like envision that, like, being outside, there's nothing really like holding you down. You can go pretty much anywhere you want to. Though low key, some of those spaces, there might be a little trouble for Black people in a sense. We can go outside and just feel that like we don't have to be surrounded by walls, which is something I'm really learning right now because my position currently is mostly indoor position. A lot of times I do feel a little bit boxed in, caged. So when I do get to do field work for work, and then once I'm off the clock, I'm heading outside, whether it's taking my dog for a walk or just being able to now go bird with my fiance and show her some of the cool things that's around my hometown. The replenishment comes from just being in nature, and then also by having friends and other people who are enjoying nature with me. Like my friend Mahdi, he's a amazing bird photographer.
Atlanta Birdman? We talking about the Atlanta Birdman?
Yes.
Shout out to the Atlanta Birdman.
Yeah, we might have to reach out to him too. I didn't know that was your homie, man. That's awesome, man. So you guys get out together, huh?
We do, yes. So yeah, going out with him, just taking trips that we're gonna say gonna be a day trip and end up being 3 days later. We go we go to South Carolina, like we're gonna come back up, and 3 days later we now down in Jacksonville, Florida. Like, I guess we should go home. But yeah.
Oh man, that's why you're not gonna be able to do that when you get married. Yeah. It's gonna change a little bit. I think I won't be able to just go off. I can give her a little heads up ahead of time. Like, I might be gone for a couple of days. I gotta check in. I can't say, I don't got nothing to do tomorrow.
You know what I love, Al? You were telling that quick story about you were out fishing and you got your spark bird. So you were already in nature and you're already exploring nature. You're already getting joy from fishing. You're already out there, and then all of a sudden you have this red-tailed hawk fly over you in that moment. So it seems like to me early on, you knew that nature was for you.
Yes. Well, my last name is Troutman, so it's like I was going to be in nature. But yeah, I was definitely, I can't lie, like, I was blessed growing up with my family, like being able to own our own home. And we have a yard, like a little creek in our backyard, probably on like a half an acre or so. I would spend time fishing and chasing. They're called salamanders, but at the time when I was little, I was calling them water lizards because they was right next to the water. So I grew up doing that. Then my dad, uncles, and brothers, like they all fished. We went fishing. And so I was very blessed to have that. A lot of Black people and people of color don't have that. And that I was able to have that, not only have my own yard, but have someone to go out with and experience nature with. And that was what I was doing. I was fishing with my dad and my uncle and brothers, and I was getting whooped in fishing. That means I wasn't catching anything. Even the birds was catching fish. The great blue hares was across the catching fish. And so being myself, like I have ADHD, so I was just looking around. That's when I saw the red-tailed hawk just flying over. Like I was like, I really like that bird. And at the time, I didn't know that was my spark bird. I didn't know what a spark bird was. But I knew that's what was connecting me with nature. And then later on in life, that's when I knew like, oh, the spark bird is a bird that gets you into birding, or for me, helped further develop that feeling and love for nature. That's when I realized the spark bird was the red-tailed hawk. But again, like I said, I was blessed to have that family like acceptance of doing something nature. So for us, it was fishing. Like I remember days jumping in a old deuce and a quarter, driving down Alabama and fishing, going to West Point Lake fishing. Cool thing for me was like being able to like bond with my brothers and dad and uncles. But yeah, like I said, I was blessed to have that growing up. Like I didn't have to go out and find nature. It was in my backyard. It was my yard. I was getting in trouble looking for frogs and snakes instead of cutting the grass or like playing baseball, just being distracted by anthills or vultures flying over. And then all of a sudden I got to look up and see a ball and watch it soar over my head. Got to run and catch it. And that's why they put me. That's why they put me in. And they put me in left field because no, she wasn't hitting over there.
They're like, listen, Al ain't paying attention. We gotta. Right. I want him to participate, but he up there with the birds. We gotta, and that's such a great story because it's just reading about you a little bit, man. And if you Google Alex Troutman, you'll find articles on this gentleman doing things all over the place. He mentioned he was in DC. Now he's down outside of Georgia or outside of Atlanta. And I think the interesting part, something I read about you, you're one of six, right? One of six kids.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
So I have a blended family, actually. So my dad had a son before he met my mom. And then I have two cousins that are my siblings. Their mother passed away and my family adopted them. So I have two cousins that are my siblings. Then my dad had a son and my mom and dad had three other kids. So it's all of us. We was running around.
Rolling deep.
It's rolling deep.
Yeah.
Everybody pulled up in that silver Ford Windstar. They knew the Troutmans was there.
And I find that like I imagine that in that backyard you talked about, right? And like just the opportunity to experience nature. And it's so evident what you're telling us from a young age that you were curious about everything, not paying attention to mowing the lawn, not paying attention to baseball, and pursuing these things in your mind. And it's evident too when I read about some of the research activities you've done, the conservation activities, from the sea turtles, right, to the bats. I didn't even remember about the bats, right? And like you just done all these other things. Like when you think back, like what are some of your favorite moments or experiences that you've had, maybe positions, seasonal positions, research positions, internships, whatever? Because I think it's important for people to hear like some of the diversity of the things that you've done. I find it to be incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work. Like my first governmental job was working with butterflies, endangered species called Karner Blue Butterflies, actually up in Dexter neck of the woods in New Richmond, Wisconsin. We was working
the Karner Blues. We got some good spot. One of my bird mentors, Bob Welch, who passed away, he has a huge Karner Blue population on his property that he's donating in perpetuity for conservation and to the state and things. Yeah, that butterfly is so beautiful, Al, and it is it's a cool connection to not only you, but somebody else that means the world to me in the birding world.
Karner Blue, like it was amazing just working up and see them, and like it was long hours doing work before we could even like go and see the butterfly. My job was to do a lot of habitat manipulation or like planting like grasses and mowing ag fields, waterfowl production areas, as well as like thinning the forest just to be able to get some suitable habitat to be able to plant the plants that we needed to then go and collect the Karner Blue Butterflies and their eggs. Now, collecting the eggs was hard. Like, it's being on your hands and knees looking for like a spear egg the size of just a little bit bigger than like a pin needle, looking for that egg, finding that, and then like cutting some of the host plant off, which is the wild lupin, putting that in a test tube to eventually being able to transpose it to some wild lupin that we're growing in a greenhouse, and then eventually release the new butterfly and caterpillar that hatch into our waterfowl production areas. I spent a year doing that. Then that made way for me to work with sea turtles. I had never worked with sea turtles before, never thought I would, because at the time I wasn't going out to sea to see anything. I wasn't going to get on the boat. The good thing is sea turtles, they actually come ashore. Mostly the females. There are a population in Hawaii where the males will come ashore and bass. But Texas, on the coast of the continental U.S., most other population of sea turtles, only the females come back up after they have made it from a hatchling to the sea and an adult when they come back and lay the eggs. There are other circumstances where they're like injured or get cold sun where the males may wash up. But anyways, sea turtles came to me. I didn't have to go to them. So I got to work with sea turtles at Padre Island, that's the seashore, as a sea turtle biologist, mainly focusing on the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. But also got to do some work with green sea turtles and some hawksbill that got washed up, as well as some loggerheads. But our main focus was the Kemp's Ridley sea turtles and getting them, once they come up to lay, like collecting their eggs and putting them in incubation room and rearing them till they hatch and then releasing them. They are a critically endangered sea turtle, and they're pretty cool. I like them because they're a misfit. They're like the smallest sea turtle species, but they also are sea turtles that nest during the daytime where most others nest during the night, and they nest in like groups called arabatas. So a whole bunch of them come up at time. Now, this doesn't happen in Texas, but in Mexico, a lot of them come up at time. In Texas, when it's an arabata, it's like when it's like probably like 5 to 6 coming up, like on the same beach, not just in the same area at a time. We'll call that arabata. But in Mexico, I haven't got to see this person yet, but it's my list. In Mexico and also like in Costa Rica for like Olive Ridleys, they will come up and nest like hundreds of thousands at a time on the beach. So like I got to experience that. So that's one of the cool things. And like I like sea turtles because like Black people, like we are like already like gotta get it out the mud. We're stuck at the bottom like when we are born, just like sea turtles. Like they're literally gotta dig themselves out of a nest, and then once they get out of the nest, they're not out of harm's way yet. They still got to make it across the beach through those dangers, and then get to the water where they still are going to be facing more dangers. Like in fact, like only 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 like sea turtle hatchlings will actually make it to adulthood. It's just crazy that like the sea turtles, like they go through so much to just to reach the ocean, then they're still not technically safe. Then Black people, like we go through so much to not only just go throughout life, but for many of us, like getting into the conservation field. And then once we are successful at getting to the conservation field, like our job isn't done. We still have to turn back to shore to go help others out. So it's like a never ending cycle of putting yourself on the line just to make sure others are safe and keeping that door open, not trying to gatekeep others.
Yeah, man. Like that's a great analogy, right? The level of perseverance for those turtles, for those sea turtles, right? And it's certainly easily connected to for a lot of us in terms of where our families have come from. I love just the difference, like from on your hands and knees studying butterflies to, being on the beach waiting for turtles to show up so you can help them, get their eggs hatched in a higher clip. But tell me about the bats, man. What's going on with the bats? Like, tell me, because like, you ever seen that scene from Ace Ventura where he goes into the cave with the bats and like he can't, like I felt that scene in my soul. I like that, but I don't know, like that's the one creature that I'm not sure I can necessarily be around. So I'm like incredibly curious about how you ended up doing that, man.
Bats they're amazing. Like, I like bats again because they're a misfit animal, like not really understood like a lot of times by people as well. But I got into working with bats by like chance and luck. I applied for a position through a university here that was going to be going to Malaysia, working with small mammals. Like, my research college undergrad was working with small mammals. So those are like rodents, which can include like squirrels are rodents, if you didn't know. Beavers are, but beavers aren't considered small mammals. But anyway, it's just like voles, rats. My job was going to be working with those small mammals in Borneo, which is island that's like owned by 3 different countries. You got Malaysia, and then it's Indonesia, and Brunei is all on the island of Borneo. But my original job was going to be going and do small mammal research, but funding fell through for that project, which was a project that technically I wasn't even going to apply to because I didn't think I was qualified for it. And then like people kept saying, hey, you should apply to this. And I was like, oh. But then like by the third time, someone like, Alex, like, you need to apply to this. So then I applied to it and I got it. Then the funding got taken away for that project, but they hit me up. They was like, yeah, like, we're sorry, like the funding isn't going to be for this project, but would you want to, well, actually they said, I hope it's okay. We pitch you on the bat team. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to pass that up.
Let's go.
Right. To go work with bats, and then just to still be able to go to like Malaysia, all the way across the world. That would have been like my first time like actually like going across the world anyway. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to pass that up. So anyways, I got a chance to do bat work in Malaysia, and it was a lot of work. We started off not getting a lot of bats. We were hiking up a mountain, setting up mist nets, and waiting for bats to come. But for the first couple of nights, we wasn't getting bats. And then we introduced another trout, which is called a harp trout. And basically, it's a giant window frame with fishing line hanging down from it, and the bats fly into it and bounce off, and they get caught in a bag that's up under the harp trout. So then once we started doing both of those and moved locations, we started getting bats. And I was like, ooh, walking up this mountain is actually worth it. Because we was walking up, first it started off like twice a day. Then it was doing it 4 times a day, going up and down, because we'd go up the night before, set up, then come back down. Then in the morning time, we'll go back up to look at the heart traps, and then move into a different location. And then we'll have to go down and hike back up and set them the actual mist nets up. But we started catching bats, and we was catching different types of fruit bats and insectivores, bats that eat insects. But insectivores, like they were like cool, like set them up and close and all. They don't have anything like on the fruit bats, because like the insectivores, their eyes so small and like beady. They look at you, but it's not like they're looking at you. But with the fruit bats, they're looking at you, and their eyes are pretty big. And it's like, I'm going to remember you. And then the fruit bats are like biting down on you, trying to bite you. And thankfully we have gloves on, and so like it doesn't really hurt. But it's just like them staring at you like, oh, you got me? I'm going to remember you and come get you. But anyways, all that to say, like, bats are not dangerous. They're not going to chase you and try to bite you or anything like in the movies. And a lot of people
listen.
Yes.
I can see.
I'll take your word for it, bro.
Ace Ventura, bro. I can see Jason running out of the cave. Like,
Right.
You know what's crazy, Al? You'd be proud of us. You know, every year we do Bats and Birds at dawn. Every summer we do a Bats and Birds event for our birding club, and we do it in the summer, and that's typically when it's like, you know, nesting season. It's more quiet, so we go out a little early and we go to a bat swarm, and we partner up with our local DNR, and they have this barn that has about it was almost a little over 200 little brown bats, and they come in for their swarm after going out and hunting all night. So we sat there in our lawn chairs right in front of the barn, and I can vouch for this, Jay. They did not touch anybody. They swarmed around everybody, and we got to watch them. It was really cool. It was very similar to like Swift Night Out, you know, like the experience of like watching it, and not instead of going into the chimney, they're going into the barn from like the window and all these little cracks. And like every once in a while, one of them would like pause like on like a ledge or something, and you would get a little look at them, and then they're gone again. They were coming low, bro. Like some of them, they were like buzzing. You know, they will buzz you because they're kind of curious. But wow, it was so cool. So we did that for about 2 hours, and then we hiked a nearby portion of the Ice Age Trail after that.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So we make it we get the bat swarm feel, and that gets everybody's juices kind of going, and then we just go do some normal birding after that. Nice. Great summertime event.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Like, one of my goals is to see the Mexican and Brazilian free-tailed bats down in Austin, and see them like go up under the Karner Street Bridge. They have like millions of bats like coming in and leaving like at dusk. I want to see it. I've been on the bridge, but I haven't seen the bats yet. So it's my goal to see that. One fun fact about bats is like, actually two. One is they're actually one of the fastest flying like animals, especially with powered flight. Peregrine falcon can dive like around like 212 miles per hour, but it's not the fastest. And then at one time, I think it was like a swift that was one of the fastest bird. The fastest like flying powered flight is actually the Mexican like free-tailed bat, and they can reach like 99, 98 miles per hour. Also, like going back to bats being scary, bats, like even vampire bats, they bite and they don't like suck blood. They actually just like lap the blood up of like livestock and stuff. But there's actually a moth that actually like bites and like sucks your blood. Mostly
that's
mostly
what I'm
like
supposed to be afraid of. Okay.
Yeah, watch out for them moths. They small and sneaky. But you don't have to worry about them. I believe they live in South America. So they should go birding down there.
Love it.
I just Googled that bat, and it looks both the Mexican and the Brazilian free-tailed bat. They are cool looking, man. They are pretty dope.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Al, so you were talking a little bit about growing up, with your family, and you got your dad, and you're fishing with your dad and your family, your siblings and uncles and everybody. But we were talking about this lacking of role models as youngsters for people that may want to go into STEAM fields. And I know that's important to you and your mission. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of your experiences that have validated you to push that, to maybe be that for some people, or any particular experiences that you treasure?
For me, like growing up, like for a while, like I didn't have any like role models. Like I knew I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, conservationist, but I didn't know exactly in what field and what avenue was that even possible for me. Like I grew up on Seaver and Jack Hanna, Jeff Corrin, all great conservationists and wildlife people. They're all white. They don't have any connections to me whatsoever. But I was like inspired by them, wanting to do that same stuff that they were doing. But for me, like the closest thing I can get to working with animals were either be a vet or be a farmer. And those are the only roles of Black people and people of color working with animals. So for the longest time, I knew I wanted to be a wildlife biologist and conservationist, but I chose to be a vet because that was the only avenue that I had going for me. And for even the longest time, like I grew up 20 minutes from a national battlefield, and then the National Park Service, park where I work at now, is 45 minutes from me. And even then, like I never saw a Black or a person of color working in those roles in any type of like scene position. Even at the zoo, Atlanta Zoo, Atlanta is heavily diverse. At the zoo growing up, there were still no Black people working in like animal care, husbandry, or any of that. We're mostly working in like the like entertainment or like hospitality areas of the zoo. And that was like that. Even I didn't see another Black zookeeper until I started working as a zoo as an educational person and one of the ambassador hammers keepers. I didn't see that another Black person. And then at Kennesaw Mountain, it still wasn't that another Black person. I don't think I seen one on to this day. And even at a state park, my local state park. So there was like no connection. I like to say mirror, someone who looks like me working in the, not just wildlife field, but natural resource field when I was growing up. And like, I know that feeling. And it's one of the reasons why like I try to be like that person for other individuals, especially the younger, like Black and brown generation. Because a lot of times we're not showing that representation, and two, sometimes sadly it comes from like our friends and family where it's like, oh, there's like no money in those fields, so you should try to be something else. For a long time, like I have family members who's like, oh, like, are you going to be a doctor now? But no, like, I don't want to be a doctor. Like, you probably wouldn't want me to be a doctor anyway, because I wouldn't have that much sympathy for certain things. Anyways, it was like a lot of like discouraging, like things like, oh, you should be a doctor. Like, you're smart. Like, why waste it on animals or working with wildlife? So sometimes it can come from that. But then other times, like just being, most of my positions, like I worked in growing up, like from college, like many times I was the only, not only Black person, but person of color, like in some of my classes, even in grad school, it was still like that. And most of my positions, I am, if not one of the few person of colors, if not the only Black person. Even today in my office right now, we have a lot of Black individuals that work at the park, but in my division, I'm the only Black person of color. So it's still like, there's a lot of, nowadays, there's a lot of Black people like in this field, but we're still, I'm not going to say there's a lot. There's more Black people and people of color in this field, but we're still spread out, and there's still a need for not only like role models, but communities. So that's why, like, again, I try to be that role model. And eventually my goal is to go a step farther and create a nonprofit to help get natural resources to the community. Because a lot of times the STEAM positions that are pushed towards are the ones that are pretty much like high pay, clean, high tech, like being a doctor, being an engineer, but it's not talking about in the natural resource field where it's not always the best pay if it's what you're passionate about. That's still good. And depending on how you work it, some of these positions, you still can get paid a lot. It's also the positions where a lot of people say, oh, if I want to do work with natural resources or work with animals, I got to be a wildlife biologist or I got to get dirty. But no, you can be GIS person, you can do grant writing, you can create maps, you can write books, you can design like the signs for national parks and wildlife refuges and still be contributing to conservation and wildlife. So that's what I eventually want to do is create a nonprofit that exposes kids to those fields and positions.
We need you, Al. We need you.
Yeah, man, that sounds dope.
I appreciate it. I'm trying.
Like, what would you say, folks haven't, I'll put this in the show notes too. Your website is pretty dope, and there's some pictures on there, some shots from the field, and you're just like, you're out there with the babies, man. You're showing the babies all the stuff in nature, the kids, and like, I'm a sucker for that. I cry like 10 minutes into every Disney movie. So when I see you out there doing that, just having met you and your kind of personality, right? Like, what kind of advice would you give to teachers or parents or just community members that want to get, their kids out into nature? Like, how should they approach it? If you could give them a couple small points of advice.
I guess the first thing is to like meet them where they are. You got to go to them, or sometimes it takes getting down on your knees and talking to them and listening, and not listening to answer, but actually listening. Then also just don't really take for, I guess, not really like granted, like them like maybe not paying attention to you. For instance, I was working with homeschool kids, and we were talking about like mushrooms and stuff. And there's like one kid like wasn't really paying attention. He was looking around at skies and stuff. Then like the next week,
he was you.
Yeah, I was going to say you probably relate to little homie.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely was me. Yeah, but anyways, we was walking around, and then we was doing a nature hike a couple weeks later, and he found some mushrooms, and he started pointing like, oh, look, this one has gills. And like from like a couple weeks ago, it was like he was paying attention, but he was able to like I was like, oh, those are gills. And like, so sometimes they're not, you might not think they're paying attention. It depends on how there could be their learning style. For me, like having ADHD, like I fidget a lot, or so if like I'm writing stuff down or like drawing, doodling, I might not be like paying attention exactly to what you're saying, but it's definitely going in and it's like getting ingrained in my mind. So don't necessarily pit them out if you don't think they're paying attention, but also you'll be very surprised what they know. Sometimes all it takes is asking, or is like, just say, hey, can you share something you don't know? Some kids, like even at 5 and 6 years old, already know what invasive species are and things like that. Meet them where they are and don't count them out. Just expose them to as much as you can. And then I guess for me, a lot of teachers, they want the brightest students. And sometimes the brightest students are just not good test takers. So again, it goes back to learning how your students learn, and the best way for them to exemplify and tell you what they have learned than be giving them tests and writing on papers. Lastly, is just like make sure you're meeting their needs first. You can, like I always say, it's like a lot of people like, oh, they're not doing this, or I gave them this, but okay, yeah, you gave them a book, but are you sure they understand the book? Or maybe they understand the book, but they're hungry or something. You got to check with their needs first. You can't like just be giving them stuff and not saying. It's like them telling them. For me, like I look at it this way, for especially like for being in nature. Everyone wants to be in nature, and a lot of times people, organization, parks, even the Department of Natural Resources, like, hey, we provide access to this place. Okay, you provide access to it. Okay, well, how am I going to get there? Who's there? Like, is it safe for me to come there? Okay, I got access. But is just access to the property, or did you actually give me keys? Or it's like, oh, it was telling me like, oh, you have access to my house, now go make a sandwich. And then when I get there, like, you don't have anything to make a sandwich with. So like, are you providing the right materials, or you just giving access to be performative?
Yeah, I would say get people outside, access. That conversation, Jay, is something we've talked about a little bit. Having some access, the lack of access, and the impact of that on people of color and nature as a whole. But when we're thinking about nature, Al, I think another cool thing that I admire about you is you also are a hunter. And there are some things that I started learning when I was starting to go up to like Horicon Marsh, and when I joined the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance. I started learning that a lot of hunters and organizations that represent hunters give a lot to conservation. Like I never thought about it, right? Like I'm like, oh, y'all are going out and you're hunting. I never thought about this idea and the relationship between hunting and conservation and nature and balance. And I just feel like you get that. And you're really, really a model for that, because I see you are even participating in training sessions for hunters of color. And obviously you spent time hunting or fishing and exploring with your brothers and uncles as a kid. But what brought you to hunting, and what brought you to trying to educate people about it and bring more people in?
Yeah, so for me, like I grew up fishing and loved it, and like I always wanted to go hunt. I knew at one time, like my granddaddy hunted, but he stopped like early before I was born. And like I would hear people talking about, oh, I'm going hunting today. There was no one that actually like invited me. There's people like, oh yeah, come with me anytime, but no one was actually like direct and say, hey, let's go hunting, or you can come with me. And that wasn't until I was in Alaska. Yeah, it was weird.
Just
I was
casually,
doing something
like I was just in Alaska. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I was doing some youth work in Alaska, and after my freshman year of college, doing some youth work, and another group came up there to also help with the youth, and they happened to be from Georgia. And I was like hanging out with them, and long story short, I nearly like scared the boy to death. But anyways, like I was walking around the naturals, and like I went and hid behind a tree, and like this boy walked by and jumped out like I was there, like and like he scared him. And after that, like he became like my mentor. He was getting ready to go to my mentee. He was getting ready to go to college, so like I was just helping him out, talking about what college is like and stuff. And then his family actually invited me hunting on my first deer hunt, and that was like, I think junior year of college. So somewhere between like 2013, 2014, somewhere then. So they actually invited me out to go hunting. And like, for me, like, if you're going to put something out there, I'm going to accept it. So I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll go. And went out there with their family for a weekend, got my first deer, got a doe, went through the whole process of like gutting it and cleaning everything out and taking it to a processor. So that was my first time. And then I was hooked after that, like being able to provide meat for my family, even though at that time, like it was just me eating it. I had to convince like my mom and family to like eat, like, it's okay. Like, yeah, it's deer, but it's good. But they enjoy it. I got the best venison chili recipe one. All right. A couple of competitions, but that's another story. But anyways, like,
this brother, what can he do, bro?
I know, right?
He went and chili cook-offs with venison, researching sea turtles and bats, and dude, man, see how best smile and birding. Come on, man.
But yeah, so after that, like I was hooked, and I've been hunting with them several other times, and like for me, like I was one of the only like black persons out there, and then right during the pandemic, like right before, I met Lydia, one of the co-founders of Hunters of Color. I mean, I followed them, and I put in for a mentored goose hunt that was going to be taking place like in 2022 after New Year's, and like I put in a couple like months before, didn't hear back, and then literally, I think it was like Christmas or it was New Year's Eve, someone called me, and me being the person that I didn't recognize the number, so I just said
straight to voicemail.
Right, exactly. And then finally they called back, they left a voicemail, and then it was like, oh, we're wondering if you're interested in going on a mentor hunt. Just give me a call back. So I called, and then I picked up, and Lydia was telling me about the hunt. It's like, oh yeah, you can come on the hunt, but you have to be here by tomorrow. And it was in Memphis. It was just like probably like 10 hours away, maybe. So I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I drove, I picked up, drove across, and it was actually just across the river from Memphis. It was in a small town in Arkansas. It was close to Memphis. I hopped in my car, like I told my parents, I was like, hey, I'm about to go hunting. Like, where you going? I was like, somewhere in Arkansas. Who you going with?
Come on.
Someone called me. It was very sketch, but I'm going. So I drove over there.
I crossed that bridge numerous times as a kid going from Memphis to Arkansas to get our fireworks. I know exactly what you're talking about.
We're going to add that to the list of stuff you can't do once you get married. Like, we're just going to go ahead and put that one in. You can't just be like, oh, some random person called me to go hunting. There's somewhere in Arkansas. I'm going to leave tonight. No, I'll see you in a few days. Like, man.
That's definitely one of them. But yeah, so I drove up there. When I got there, it was a bunch of people of color at actually one of America's first, if not still the only, like black owned and created hunting lodges, Black Duck Revival. I just got there, fellowship, broke bread, and then we woke up and went goose hunting the first day, and it was amazing. I got a couple of snow geese. I got some white-fronted geese, also known as like speckled belly. They're a beautiful bird, and they taste really good. But anyway, so we got them, harvested them, and then we learned how to process them, cook some of them, and then one cooker. We also had raccoon the night before, and it was really good. But it was like me being a biologist, like it was on the grill, and I was like, that looks familiar. I was like, that's familiar. That ain't no regular meat. I knew it was a raccoon. And then finally, like the owner of Black Duck Revival was telling me, like, oh yeah, it's a raccoon, and he like told us how he cooked it and everything. And it was really good. He made it into like pulled like pork, but it was like pulled raccoon like sliders with some homemade barbecue sauce. It was really good. Just like having that community led me like to wanting to like actually bring that community to Georgia. And it took a while because I don't know, like I'm busy. busy, and most of my work has been like outside of Georgia. Like I worked in Texas, I worked in Louisiana, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. So I haven't lived in Georgia for a while. So like Lydia and Jimmy, the co-founders of Hunter Color, they was saying like, oh yeah, you should create a chapter, be an ambassador for Hunters of Color. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it eventually. And then finally last year, it happened, and I finally knew like I was gonna settle down and be in Georgia for a while, so I could take up some time to do that. And like I said, going back to that first hunt, just been around like so many like people of color and being in a safe space where like we don't have to have our walls and guards up. We can just talk freely amongst each other, like because many times like some of the spaces that are accessible or we're invited to, you still got your guard up. And it's like I'll tell you this, but I ain't telling you everything, you know. But around the space, like it's like all the like walls could be dropped, and we can just talk how we wanted to, eat what we want to, not have to worry about like someone saying, oh, like why do you eat this, or why are you talking like this, or oh, this is your first hunt, or like oh, you're a city boy. Like it was be able to just freely talk and have those conversations. But I wanted to eventually bring that to Georgia, and so I did. And this year I was able to host a mentor hunt, host a day at the range, and host a camping day to teach people how to camp. Man, I was able to be in the stand, or actually technically we were in the blind with one of the hunters that I was working with. I know his cousin from Hunters of Color, and so I've been able to like connect with him and invite him to this mentor hunt, and I was able to be in the blind and like watch his whole like technique and coach him on like the deer is coming from this way. I'm just coaching everything and watch him actually harvest his first deer. So that was like amazing. Like when I harvested my first deer, like someone invited me, but I was in the stand by myself, but it was just a totally different experience to be able to like see someone get their first deer and like go through like those emotions with them and see how they react to like harvesting their first animal, the respect that they gave, and then like just being able to provide them not only for them for this year for their family, but since that new skill is learned, being able to provide for the future generations and the rest of the, like this year and continue on. So it was just amazing to see that. So like, I would definitely want to continue that, encourage more people of color, especially Black people, to get out on the land. Because for many times, like in the olden days, like hunting and fishing was another way that we, if not one of the only ways that we got most of our meals. Because let's face it, sadly, when we were enslaved, we were getting only shrouds. So we're still making meals out of nothing, but to help supplement on what little we were giving, we were hunting, fishing, trapping. So I definitely want us to, as Black people, to get back to our roots, and not only with like being hunting and fishing, but also just being in outside and outdoors. Some of the first park rangers were Black individuals, the Buffalo Soldiers, and then even some of the national parks where at least the infrastructure was created by Black individuals working as a CCC crew, Conservation Corps members, building some of the framework and buildings. So I definitely want us to get back to our roots, and not just get back to our roots, but actually know the roots. Yes, we have been outdoors. We always have been, and like it's a space for us all.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, like,
yes.
Like that's, whew, man, that experience, and like just that happening by chance, like meeting somebody in Alaska and like kind of lighting that fire in you, and then the fact that could have gone out, but then you met a group that was aligned to exactly what you needed, right? In Hunters of Color, right? And I've certainly learned more about hunting through you and that group, things that I thought before I don't think anymore, because I've heard you talk about it, I've heard them talk about it, and it's from a different context than maybe what I grew up learning. And I think that's true for a lot of us. You know, and I love the idea of the self-sufficiency there too as well, right? Like, granted, I love the birds. I'm probably not going to go goose hunting, but I trust you when you say they're delicious. But I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, because with all of this going on, you still find time to get outside and take these dope photos. Like, it's crazy. Like, everybody listening to this podcast is wait. Not only does he make the chili, but he does other things too. Like, you know, like, you take some dope photography. It's obviously in the spaces that you are right? You keep casually dropping these random places that you are, like Alaska. Have you thought about, like, do you have like I definitely encourage folks to check out your Instagram and some of your photography, and we'll link it all in show notes. Do you have like a dream place you would want to go photograph birds, or a dream species, or even if it's not a bird, if it's another member of nature, special bat other than the Mexican and Brazilian free-tailed bats?
There's a couple, like, I really want to go to like South America and see the harpy eagle, shoe-bill stork.
Oh, that's the one.
I definitely want to see those. Then,
Al, when we going? We said we was gonna go together. When we going?
Let's go. After this wedding, then we can go. Let's set it up. Honestly, let's create a group chat tonight. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go.
I'm down. I'm
Mission
ready.
Harpy Eagle. We gotta make it happen. We gotta make it happen.
Yes.
That's a dope one.
I definitely want to go see those two birds. And then, like, I haven't seen a wolf in the wild. Well, allegedly I seen one when I was in Wisconsin, but I didn't get a good look. It could have just been a big dog. But I really want to see a wolf in the wild, and then I want to see a red panda. So I definitely want to go to places to see those. Australia,
they're the best, man.
Yeah, I got to get
red
back to
pandas
Australia.
when the red pandas get scared.
Right.
The red pandas, they just jump up and they put their hands up like they about to throw hands, right? And they just look so surprised. It's like the best thing I've ever seen, right?
Right. It definitely looks like somebody's like, all right, bro, like, you don't want it.
Yeah, right.
Where you go,
right? Yeah. I saw one.
That quick jab.
I know, right? I saw one get scared by a rock. Like, it just came around the corner and there was a rock that somebody had moved that wasn't in that spot before, and it just got all up. And I was like, homie, relax, you know? Yeah, they're awesome, man. Oh, that's dope.
Right. Yeah. So those are definitely on my list.
Alex, this has been great. I'm looking it up. Like, every time we hit an hour, Jay, and I'm like, how has this been an hour? We have very much enjoyed this, and thank you for sharing not only your bird joy, but your joy for nature as a whole with our listeners today. This has been very inspiring, educational, the whole nine. I just love it. I'm so happy we were able to make this happen. So happy. Where should folks be looking to stay connected with you if they want to learn more about what you got going on?
Yeah, so you definitely can check me out on Instagram at nature_Al, and that's N8 TURE_AL. It's the same on X, and eventually it will be the same on Blue Sky once I get that set up. You also catch me on my website. You can Google that.
I'll link it.
Yes, link it. And then on Facebook. And then eventually stay tuned for some Nature Al merch that will be dropping.
Nice. Look at that. Sneak peek exclusive. Let's go.
All right. What I'm talking about, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Alex, thank you so much, man. This was so great. I enjoy hearing you laugh, hearing you talk about all these stories. And it's just, I imagine there are some folks out there that are hearing and being like, man, this brother was in Malaysia or in Borneo, and then he was casually in Alaska. He's studying sea turtles in the middle of nowhere. Like, it is so inspiring, man. And the fact that you carry it with such grace and respect, and just this seems like endless supply of curiosity, man. Just kudos to you. And thanks again for spending some time with us.
Yeah. The epitome of representation right here on the Bird Joy podcast with Al and what he's doing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Bird Joy podcast. We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of nature with us and Al today. Shout out to the BIPOC Birding Club. We do have winter events going on, so check us out at bipocbirdingclub.org.
Yes. And the homies in Philly, you know it, incolorbirding.org. We putting some winter birding on the calendar soon, and we hope to see y'all out there.
Yes, please share, subscribe, and shout out the podcast to all your fellow birders and nature lovers. Help us spread a little joy.
Thanks again, Al.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, you're welcome.